and we are going
I
to
have you there. Yeah, can you see me?
I can see you in, there we go here. So I'm just going to add Derek to the Instagram, and then let's have a look. Are you coming?
Yeah, go live. There we go. That should be me.
And we'll see which way you're facing.
So I'm going to enable microphone.
So guys, on Facebook and YouTube, we're just sorting out Derek on Instagram here.
Typically, you turn the camera on its side, and now it won't let me. I don't think it has my volume on Instagram. That's really strange. Okay. So am I coming live on that now?
So I just need you to accept. It just says waiting. So it just says that you are waiting for Body Central Therapy to arrive.
Okay. Just hold on a second. So
that's cool.
Yeah. Am I on?
You're not there yet. Where are you? You joined and waved.
No,
What's going
enable.
on? Where are we going? Let's just go live with. Let me just here and go add. It just still says that we're waiting for you to connect.
Okay.
So I give a message
just give me
there.
a second. Yeah, just give me a second. Enable something up with this.
So on Facebook today, what we're going to be doing is talking about feet. Derek is just going to try and get himself up on the Instagram feed right now, but I'm conscious that on Facebook that we can be seen and heard. So I'm really excited about this conversation today because Derek has been getting phenomenal results with his clients, people who have been suffering from chronic pain, and people with mild pain from injuries that they've been recurring injuries like knee injuries and hip injuries and body displacements and all these sort of crazy things that people have been having for a very long period of time. And Derek really looks at feet, okay? And so I don't think we're going to be going, we can't really get you live there, Derek. Can we on Instagram?
Can we live now?
Oh, are you coming there? Oh,
be,
no, it says you're unable to join. What's going on here? Let me just do one more time.
Yeah.
And we'll just see here. And it says
add.
Going. And if it doesn't work, well, I'll just keep the feed going so people, or you just might ask people to move
connecting.
over. It's not connecting, is it?
Yeah, it's connecting there now.
There. Super.
Right. I'll see, can I get the camera set up a bit better?
You might need to turn down the sound for yourself because otherwise we're going to have playback. So what I've done is I've put earphones into that.
Yeah, perfect. Now, so hello. Thank you very much for inviting me on today.
No problem. So Derek, we think that there's something like 28 bones in the foot, 30 joints and like hundreds and hundreds of muscles and tendons and ligaments, and they all have to work together to support us, to have balance and mobility and flexibility and do all the wonderful things that the human body does. From our work that, from you meeting me and us knowing each other, you know that we're very passionate about the human body.
Absolutely,
and how it functions and how it performs. And me from from personal training for the last gazillions of years, and trying to bring movement and nutrition conversation. So I just want to open up this conversation about feet, about what you do, and ask you, Derek, thanks for joining us. And why are feet just so important? Why do we take them for granted? Yeah. I just have lost you on the Facebook stream, on the computer stream. Yeah. So I just tuned in.
They're not liking me at all.
You're there. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm there. Great. So, our feet, we have, we have a lot of bones. I have a little foot model here. So you can see that the feet are very complicated. When you start talking about muscles, ligaments, everything else on top of it, it becomes a very hard discussion to have. But in terms of bones, what Gary did was Gary's mapped out gait, so he's mapped out walking. So it's pretty much every joint in your body, how it moves from, from when you heel strike to when you toe off, every joint in your body, 360 degrees, and they all move. Every 206 bone finds a place in space to occupy. And there's a model of where you move through a nice centered way of working, so you're equal on the left, equal on the right. But a lot of people that come to me, I find there's a shift in their movement, there's a shift in their balance. They're overloading one side of the body, they're underutilizing the resource on the other side of the body. And what I try and do is just get that balance, because what that balance does is it takes out tension. And a lot of the disorders I come across, as Gary would call it, nobody ever. Whoops. I said Gary calls it nobody ever moved me. Sorry.
It's funny, this is working perfectly there up to by the time
Yeah,
we
I
go
know.
live, and the next thing everything falls. But that's what it's all about being live. It's all good, you know.
So
you were just saying Gary there.
Gary Ward's his view of it is it's called nobody ever moved me-itis. So we get inflammation because we're not utilizing the joint correctly. So if you overuse your knee, you're going to need a knee replacement. You overuse your hip, you're going to use a hip replacement. But you also have a case where you're underutilizing it, because if you're using one side more than the other, you'd either need 2 hip replacements, 2 knee replacements, 2 ankle replacements, whatever the case may be in terms of surgical intervention. But what your body can do is it can avoid everything. It can work around them. It can find different patterns and different ways to move when you are injured. And what we do is we try and find out how you're getting from A to B, why you're feeling pain in a certain position, and is there an underlying movement pattern that actually is hindering how you occupy space. So one of the ways we do it is to look at your feet. So we look at your feet and we look at everything else in the body from that position. So your feet are really, really complicated. I'm just going to go through at a very, very simple thing. So when people talk about having flat feet, collapsed arches, all these difficult issues, plantar fasciitis, bunions, neuromas, bone spurs, if your foot doesn't move, so you can imagine that this is your ankle joint. Everybody knows this joint. Nobody really knows the rest of them. We don't really get educated on them as we go through life. But if you can see, when I move this, and if the foot doesn't move, the only joint that moves is your ankle joint. But what's available to you is a foot that lengthens, the arch collapses, absorbs impact, and comes back up again to a new resting position. And we call this works in 3D. So your foot pronates and supinates. A lot of people that come to me think they have overpronated feet. They haven't actually got a pronated foot at all. They just have an inverted foot or an everted foot. So it looks like they have a high arch. When I get them to, turn their feet in, point straight ahead, you find that they're not actually bearing weight on maybe the big toe, the little toe, or even the heel, or the actual base of support that they have available to them is really, really small. So if you think of, I'll use my little wedges here. So if you think that when we're resting on our feet, we have a heel, a big toe, and a little toe. And if I get rid of one of those, I end up having a much smaller base of support to work with. If I have a smaller base of support, then I have less capacity in my feet to do work. And as I was showing you earlier, so if I take a weight, I can lift it with my little finger. It's 4 kilos, very, very light. It's easier with my entire hand. Okay, if you can see that on the screen.
You can, yeah.
Easier with the entire hand. So this is only a couple of kilos. When you walk, as soon as you hit the ground, your body has to manage about twice your body weight. The faster you're going, the more body weight it has to manage, because we have momentum plus your actual body weight to deal with. So if you're not using a large proportion of that real estate that you have available, then you're going to overburden something in your feet. You're going to close joints that should be open. You're going to open joints that should be closed, and you're going to compromise the way you move. So all of the joints in your foot move from going between a supinated position and a pronate position. It's really hard to show on a model because it's a 3D movement, and it starts with heel strike and it finishes with toe off. But if your toe doesn't hit the ground, what are you toeing off into? What force are you actually applying? And when you think of what you can bear with your feet, you can stand up on your toes, you can stand up on one foot on your toes. So you can take your entire body weight on what is what is a very, very small area. So that way you can see that on both cameras. So it's a tiny area, and your entire body weight is working on these bones. Now I know I'd rather have this big guy here working for me than these two little guys. But either way, the bones of your feet can actually control your mass and control how you're moving.
And what you were saying there, Derek, if you can bring back the foot there for a second, what I love here, and we were just talking about earlier, if we look at those toes, which are to me absolutely fascinating, okay, so lots of care, a part of Self-Care Sunday this is, guys, so lots of care for our toes and our foot management, because Derek let me know earlier that our toes manage your body weight times 2 or 3. And also that step is about a 0.6 of a second movement. And if you think about how many steps we take over a day, or how many times our toes land in the ground, and all the impact that they're absorbing, well, there's no wonder that the movement becomes more restrictive, over our lifespan.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what we are noticing is that there's definitely an increase people getting like back pain. There's definitely an increase in people, or maybe there's more availability. I'm not too sure, between people getting knee replacements and hip replacements, and from their misalignments.
In knee injuries, in ankle injuries, in hip injuries, and people coming to me with, it was traditionally the back pain that people were coming to me for, and neck pain, but it's more and more. When you actually go and look at their feet and work with the feet and work with the knees and work with the hip, you find that, they actually have issues all over. The thing with your brain is, like, there's a lot of stuff going on in our bodies all the time. Your body is sensing, information from your toes to your head. It's interpreting what it wants to do with it. So a lot of time we don't get a sense of what's going on until our brain goes ding-a-ling-a-ling, alarm bells ring, and we experience pain in one form or another. Now, it could be we've actually stubbed our toe, we've actually jammed it under a door, or whatever the case may be.
We all know that is.
Simple stuff. But a lot of the time, when you're straining muscles, your body will just take them out of the equation. It'll decide, I'm going to use something else instead. And instead of lifting my heel by bending my knee, I'm going to hike my hip. I've seen people who use their head to start their movement. So they'll bob forward to initiate movement. Some people who lift their legs, some people who, will shift onto one leg, stay on one leg throughout a gait cycle. So it means that there's something wrong. They're not comfortable with the other leg, which means they're not getting an opportunity to give one leg a rest. So what happens when your foot is, when you have a completely flat foot, as I move my ankle, nothing else moves. The foot is flat, stays flat, remains flat. Its entire journey, every step you take is flat. But what your foot would like to do is drop and come back up again.
Look at that.
So decelerate your movement and accelerate it back up again, and act as a spring to give you a recoil to get you off the ground, to take some of that force that your feet are experiencing and dissipate it throughout the foot. If you're in a high arch position and your foot doesn't move, well, then it's back to the good old ankle joint again. Now, somewhere between flat and high, we have every other experience. Now, one of the things that happens I'm just going to pin this down again. So one of the things that happens is, if you can think of a high arch foot, and this is your tip fib leading up to your knee, you can see that my range is quite short. So my knee can only go so far. If all the bones open on the base of my foot, you can see that this goes a lot further, which means my knee range doesn't have to go to end range.
Wow, yeah.
So I have a lot of slack in my movements, which I can utilize. If it stays high, this is it. This is actually stopping on bone here, but obviously your bones won't reach your bones. There's tissues in the way. There's capsules around them. your actual bones don't touch each other. It's only when they start to touch each other and they start to move and you start to lose cartilage that these start functioning well. Um, Bunions are one of my favorites. So what happens is somebody comes in, they have a bunion, they've had it probably for 10 years, but it started here and their big toe decided to start moving closer and closer to the midline. It exposes the joint, and John Sharkey from the NTC would say, your body doesn't like spaces. Your body will come along and it will fill this up. It will put something in there. And
I
whether
love
that
that.
develops into osteoarthritis or other conditions, it is not a normal position. Another position that your metatarsal can take is it can actually move out. And what they do to correct this is they actually chop the bone off. Okay. Now the thing is, this can go from here, and with manual work, you can actually get it to a line. You can get it right back in the socket again. All that's happened is it's gone there for a reason. So when you take a step forward, when you pronate your foot, your forefoot moves this way. If your forefoot can't move that way in unison, big toe is just going to make up the difference for you. So if I'm getting somebody to bend their knee and block this little guy, it produces a huge amount of force in this direction. And I mean like huge, like you have to remember that these guys manage your 4 times your weight. So they can produce force, of 200 kilos because that's what they have to receive. So if you can receive that level of force, you can push that level of force. I've had one of the guys in the gym got me to put on a 50-kilo vest and hold 2 30-kilo dumbbells in my arms. And I just went up on my toes because that's what their capacity is. There's muscles
Wow.
within your feet, but also, all the muscles around your lower leg, they feed into giving that power and giving that energy drive to your legs. If you stop moving your foot, these guys don't have the opportunity to do what they're there to do. I don't use the word design because there's no design in that. This is something that's evolved. We have a very, very interesting way that we move. The joints, even the articulating joints in the foot, they move in a certain way to allow your heel to slide, to allow your heel to tuck under, to allow you to invert and evert your rear foot and invert and evert your forefoot in that position. So a lot of people have an inverted foot. And as I said, if this is your start position for walking, this is your end position. If this is your start position for walking, this is your end position. Because in the time frame you have, that 0.6 to 0.85 seconds, you just don't have enough time to make a change. You've got to move every joint. And if you're already left, you don't have enough time to get right, to come back to the left again in that short period of time. So you see people with, their shoulders might be lifted on one side. It remains that way because they just don't get the opportunity when they walk to flip over to experience, I can do this and this. But when they walk, they just stay in one position. And it could be for any number of reasons: injury history, overuse, underuse. There's any number of ways you can actually come up with these. Like all our lives are different. How we actually even your bones. Like people think people's femurs are the same, but they're actually not. You can't, if you put two femurs from two different people together, even if they're identical twins, they will be different because their movement journey and how the bone is formed, they'll still be the same, pattern. They'll have condyles, epicondyles, the head of the femur, the ball of the femur, all the parts will be the same, but they will look completely different because one person's journey through life is completely different from another's.
So what can we do you think, to, like, as you said, people's journeys in lives are, very, very different. Everyone does different things on a daily basis. And our feet are obviously so important to us, as we can see there. I love that foot model so much. It's just, I met, Derek many years ago, and that was the presentation was about this foot. And I was like, tell me more.
Yeah,
this guy is...
I said to you, your feet are bleeding, you dry.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the presentation, yeah.
But it is, and it's, it was just opened my eyes just more so on how important the foot is and how it kind of moves, and like I know, obviously, you know, so many people would need to connect in with you, and I know you're doing sessions now virtually, which is, you've really pivoted during this pandemic, which has been awesome.
Well,
And
it's
so
great
many
because
people.
the props that I need are these little wedges. So what the wedges do is, if you're, let's say your big toe doesn't hit the ground, okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to use the wedge to help your brain to find the ground again. Because one of the things about movement is having a map in your head about where all your parts are. As I said to you earlier, you know, you will only move as fast as you can stop yourself. So if your brain isn't secure in the knowledge that when it swings your leg out, saying leap of faith, that it lands on the ground, it's going to land in a predictable way that you can put all your weight over it, allow your weight to be transferred through, and then skip over to the other foot without falling over. That's the priority. That's what our brains want. Like when you fall, like a knee injury or a hip injury or a head injury are usually expensive for the body to repair. So your brain's job is, I'm not going to let you do this. So even if you know, to educate it, it's both a movement education and a parts education. And even though they're not parts, they're joints. They're one whole. You know, you can't separate bone from fascia, from muscle, from tendons. It's just all one thing. What we use is the bone as a tracking device because it's easier. So instead of me wondering whether it's this myriad of muscles that are pulling in one way or the other, and go, well, if it's going this way, and I'd like it to go that way, well then let's just get it going that way. You know, let's just change the movement of the joint to get it moving the way in an ideal world we'd like it to move. So it's a
I love
really
that so
simple
much.
process. It's complicated, but you know, you can get, if you get somebody's foot back on the ground, your brain will go, I'd like to find the ground again. Because what might have happened is they might have turned their foot out to get their big toe on the ground again. Or they might have shifted away to one side to get their big toe on the ground. As soon as they start walking, they do something different. So it's a real, for me, it's
And
just
one
been
thing you said
a
earlier,
fascinating journey. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, one thing you said earlier to me, you know, is that there's no manual for the human body.
Yeah, there's
Remember
no
when we were
manual.
chatting
Yeah,
before we came live, like there's no manual. We need to figure out things a bit differently by
yeah,
listening to the body.
yeah,
I suppose allowing it to tell us really and talk to us. But
yeah.
as you said, quite often though, we don't know that we might be walking this way or walking that
No,
way,
we don't.
or you know, our pelvis
Because, yeah,
shifted. And then over time, then the body starts to speak to us and shout out and give us the pain. And that's the
yeah,
way our body talks to us, that there's something not right, you know?
yeah, correct, yeah.
Or, as you said earlier, we may experience bunions, which has been fascinating.
Yeah,
I mean, if anybody
yeah,
out there has bunions, come and speak to Derek because
yeah.
there's a fix for it, you know?
There is,
You were
yeah.
talking
Like,
about heel spurs.
yeah, heel spurs, bone spurs, plantar fasciitis. Like plantar fasciitis is where either the plantar surface it's just under too much tension. So it's either not able to do this, it's caught up in this position, and every time you load weight on it, you're jamming it up because the muscles are pulling to hold you in this position when you walk for whatever reason. You know, because it just doesn't want to go into a pronate. And you know, people are afraid of pronation, but they've
Yeah.
probably never heard of supination.
Yeah. Or you've been told it's wrong, because even in runners, when
Told
you
it's
get
wrong,
your
yeah. You're
runners to fit your
overpronated, yeah,
shoe,
yeah.
or you're sorry, the runners to fit your shoe. Hear me. Oh my gosh. If you get your runners to fit your foot, and how you're, you know, a lot of people get runners to correct maybe the imbalance in their footfall rather than correcting their foot
Yeah.
first. You know, I know you're a big believer in getting the feet to
Oh,
hit the
just get the foot
ground.
working. Yeah, just get the foot working. So if you look at, if I use, you know, a runner's prop, you can see I've just put a wedge under here.
Yeah.
So now when I move, what happens?
Yeah. There's no
Nothing.
movement.
There's no movement. There's no relative
Oh
movement
God.
because
Yeah.
I put in the support because I wanted my foot in this shape so that my femur is vertical. You know, my tib fib is vertical, my femur is vertical above, and it's vertical on the hip socket. But we don't run that way. We run in twisty, turny. You know, we like to have different ways of managing it because, you know, yeah, we live in a very flat world. But you go on to trail running. You want this guy because you want your foot to adapt to the terrain, not the terrain to adapt your foot. You know, so Yeah.
You know, in that they're.
And there's no right or wrong way with this. The thing is, you can have as many dysfunctions as you want with your feet and not have a problem. You may never notice. The same thing with your hip. You could have, people talk about posture and, the fact you're in a slouchy posture. If I'm comfortable in this posture, I'm staying here.
Yeah.
If I can't move from here into this posture, if I can't shape shift, if I can't change my posture, then it becomes a problem. But if you want to rest on one hip or you want to hang out on one hip and it's not going to cause you a problem, then don't worry about it.
Yeah. And the human body, as we keep saying, it's amazing and it keep adapting for us, and it's totally. Derek, can you talk to us about the story that you had before? It's actually a case study that you had before about a woman or a person with, I don't know if it's male or female, with no left hip. Do you remember you were talking?
Yeah, no, I actually had a lovely conversation with a young lady. She's a neuromuscular therapist. She only recently qualified. I've been giving her some tips online, trying to help her out. But she has a very unique body. Her hip socket is gone. She had some congenital issues when she was born. She's had leg lengthening work done. She's had all sorts of things done. But this lady can walk. She can move from A to B. But her hip socket actually isn't there. Her hip socket is practically there's a bone, there's a femur, there's a limb, and she can actually manage herself on that without the socket because her brain has just worked out a magical way of getting her to move. Because there's and that's what you're saying. Like if you look at some of the work done in kind of limb repairs and limb restoration. One of the guys I know actually made that cage for extending your leg, and it's a pretty amazing piece of work because his research was on how the bone would actually start growing between the two separate pieces. And it's amazing because the bone just goes in. You made a space in the body. The bone is, the body just goes in there and puts bone back in all on its own. Sometimes it needs a scaffolding, sometimes it doesn't. But in terms of, I actually lost train of thought there. But in terms of what your body can do to make it work around, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal.
And we're talking about, you were mentioning earlier, like, the human body can keep adapting in the way, and we're just really emphasizing this because some people can move now without feet.
Yes, you can walk without your feet. You don't need feet to walk. We can lock up our knees, we can lock up our hips, we can lock up our feet. Your brain will figure out a way because if your torso can move, you will figure out a way that you can actually swing your legs. We look at anatomy of motion. We look at your body from two ways. So, can I? Your femur moves. We always think of the femur moving in the hip, but we think of the hip moving over the femur. Because there's two sides to it. There could be one side is stable and not doing any of the journey. The other side is doing all the journey. And if you can get both making that journey, then it's easier on the joint. But you just develop a different way of moving. You develop a slightly different constrained way of moving. And there is no perfect. There's an ideal, in the world of how you might like all this to come together. The closer you can get to that, I think the better it is and the easier it is to work. Because I was talking to you earlier about your weight, your muscles, being able to lift a weight with your hand.
Yeah.
The less effort your body has to do to move you. If your lower limb and your foot can do a lot of that work for you, walking is effortless.
Yeah.
If you're having to lift your leg every time, like literally haul yourself over, I'd ask anybody to go home and try doing a Groucho Marx walk for 10 minutes, which is basically just lift your leg, lift your leg, lift your leg, lift your leg, lift your leg. Your quads will be burned out because that's not how we walk.
Yeah.
We walk by leaving our leg behind us. All of the tissue lengthens and then contracts and brings your leg back to where it started. It's not it shouldn't be an effortful experience to actually walk. It should be easy. It should be effortless. The ground should give us as much energy back when we stand on it as it does when we leave it.
Derek, this is absolutely fascinating, and your lucky clients.
I haven't made sense to anybody.
I know, but it
Yeah,
does. And the more we talk and the more
yeah,
understanding I get of it as well. And I just think like anatomy and motion is what you're specialized in as a physical therapist and a
it
personal
is.
trainer.
Yeah. So
You
it's
really
been,
look with a unique way than what most people would look at. And as a result of this, the reviews that you've been getting, and this is the one that really highlighted to me, is the amount
yeah.
of people going, oh, this guy is golden. Like he just has helped me like with my back pain that I've had for 20 years or something. And now, it's resolved or it's so much better. And then maybe another
Yeah,
session or
yeah.
2 or 3 sessions, this can work. And we're not saying it's a miracle cure, but just through
No,
looking at the body differently.
it can seem like I've had like I've worked with people with Parkinson's who have, they have a dopamine issue in the brain. They can't regulate fine movement. They struggle with movement. But when you show them how to use their feet again and actually give them that neural stimulus, a lot of the shuffle and this is my own experience of working with a number of patients, that they would have started with a shuffle, with a really, really, fragile movement, very, very tentative, very afraid to move. But when we restored a little bit of confidence in the brain of how they were moving, they just took off. And their families are sitting there going,
Yeah, I
what did you
can't
just
believe
do?
that.
Did you give them drugs? No, all I did was give their brain a sense that they were moving better, that they could move better, that it was possible. Now, it isn't a permanent fix, but if they do the homework, and there are definitely movement practices which are out there which can help people with Parkinson's. There aren't too many people in Ireland doing them. What I'll do is I'll post a couple of them in the comments for anybody, if they want to follow them up. There's some companies in Australia who are doing it, in New Zealand, but there's only 5 or 6 practitioners doing this type of work, doing movement work with people with Parkinson's, and I think there's only one of them not in, only one of them in private practice. Everybody else is, an occupational therapist or a physical therapist or a physiotherapist working in a hospital. But yeah, the movement can really solve a lot of our problems.
We can, absolutely. And
Mm.
this is why we need to open this conversation up and hopefully,
Mm.
connect in more and, help people really understand that they can resolve a lot of
Yeah,
issues that they have with movement through just looking at the body differently. And instead of going out and pounding the pavements, is just to take a step back
yeah,
in their training maybe. And,
yeah.
especially now is now a better time than
That's a
ever,
perfect
Derek,
time to
because
look at yourself and go, what can I do? I'm stuck in the house. I don't know what to do. I have pain. I can't train. What can I do to actually get myself out of this position? And a lot of people, people are afraid to go. I've had 2 people who wouldn't actually go to the doctor or the ER because they were just struggling so bad. They contacted me online and said, please, can you do anything for me? I'll let you come out to me in a hazmat mask, because they were just so afraid of actually picking up the virus, which is, I know in one way it's crazy, but look, it is the world that we're living in at the minute. But yeah, there's lots that people can do. Move the parts of your body that aren't moving.
yeah.
That's,
And to really kind of hone in on those weaker, what we
yeah,
deem in trainer speak would be the weaker areas, because a
yeah,
lot
the
of
weaker
people always
areas,
just
yeah,
constantly focus on their strengths and go, oh, I can do this, so I'll work on that
yeah,
and I'll keep working on there. But the
yeah,
weaknesses or the weaker areas get left behind. And I suppose it's a bit like personal development. Quite
yeah,
often
it
we can go,
is,
these
yeah.
are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, and I'll leave them as my weaknesses, but I'll keep going on my strength, so try and hone in on your weaknesses. Try and hone in on areas that might be weaker in your body. Connect in with Derek Byrne. He's there on the healthpro.ie. He's an allied health professional. He
I'd be
works,
delighted to help.
very close. We're all better together, is what I was trying to say. And just thinking about the human body differently. Not everyone has to follow the same path. Nobody actually follows the same path.
Nobody follows the same
and
path.
Derek, no, absolutely. And a lot of people are given the same treatment. It's like going to a personal trainer. Sometimes it's just one program in some trainers, and they shouldn't operate like that.
Yeah.
But we see it, in our work, and it absolutely is a grr moment for us. But we're blessed to be able to open up this conversation with a lot of our clients, So I'm hoping that this conversation today gets people talking about feet.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm hoping that people that out there that have bunions or heel spurs or God, and one of the 2, you've covered it today, but 2 of the questions that came in was plantar fasciitis. Okay,
Yeah.
and we've explained that, and Achilles tendonitis as well. I don't think we went into that too much, but
well, the Achilles tendonitis, if we can just grab this. So if you can imagine, and again, it comes back to range. So what I'm going to show you is if we can we catch that on both. So as I'm bending here, if you can imagine, I have an Achilles tendon connected. If all the pressure is on up here with this bone moving, my Achilles is under pressure, but my calcaneus is designed to move that way. So my calcaneus is designed to follow it and actually take the stress off and put the stress onto the plantar fascia on the base of your foot. So if all your movement is here, then your Achilles is definitely going to be compromised because it's taking, like I've had probably in the last year, 4 people who've had severed Achilles, fully severed Achilles. Not a whole
the
lot you can do
pain!
with
Oh my
them.
God!
Yeah. And the amount of, like, you're talking tons of force to do this, like huge amount of force. Like you take these things out of the body, they react differently. But if you think of, if this is moving and it's the only joint moving, it's the only joint doing all the work, you got really tight cramped shoes. Like if you watch this model, when I move the Achilles, you see the toes get longer, shorter, longer, shorter. The foot gets wider, thinner, wider, thinner, but it moves in 3 dimensions. But if you're relying on just this guy for all your movements, you're missing out on all of this. And things like your Achilles tendon will definitely be under more pressure. If the Achilles follows the calcaneus, if you can actually pick that out. So if the Achilles follows that, you can see my hand isn't moving. The joint underneath, now obviously it doesn't open up as much as that. This is a model which is going to give you some very, very strange looking joint openings. But if I open up the base of it and I lengthen my foot, so one of the things you can do is you can try the pencil push test. So you basically put a pencil in front of your toes. You bend your knee over your toe and try and push the pencil away. If you can't do that, then you've got very few bones moving in your feet.
Wow, God,
So
there's so much we
other
can talk about.
questions?
They were the main 2 that came through, before. So it's how to resolve plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis. And I think, what, with a lot of people they're not commuting to work, so they're getting time to exercise more, and they're probably going and doing runs that they probably shouldn't be doing. And, their body is going through all this extra load. Yeah, and not progressing their workouts. Then a lot of injuries have kind of have occurred, really. And we know that you're the guy that can fix this, which is great, through looking at your
it's really, and I'm gonna have to be very honest with this, I don't fix anything.
Okay? No. You guide the person.
No, but we do, the thing is, we think of going to somebody to fix something, when really what we should be going to somebody for is knowledge and information to help you fix it yourself.
I love it. Exactly. Beautifully said. Derek, on that note, we've been chatting here for like 38 minutes.
It's been a lovely conversation. Thank you.
And we can keep going probably for another 2 hours or 3 hours.
I can talk to you about the big toe for an hour.
I know, it's fascinating, and I love it.
Rigidus is another one of the things you can get where your big toe doesn't move.
Well,
there's loads of different, you can find is you'll find where it is in terms of your movement chain. You'll actually figure it out.
Well, this is definitely a conversation that I hope people really tune into. We open up the conversation about the foot, and we get people to really understand that a lot that's going on our feet can contribute to a lot of how our body is positioning then throughout. And also another big point, which I did choose the wrong words, and I apologize for that, is that my work as well, we don't fix people, we give them the knowledge and the guidance for that. And I love how you phrase that.
Yeah, so, and they resolve it themselves. Everything is within us to resolve whatever issues we have going on, whether it's, as you said, physical, mental, emotional, because our tissues will repair, but they have to have the right conditions to repair. And if you have joints that are literally banging against each other day in, day out, they're not going to heal. You can get somebody to do some intervention. You'll put on ointments, treatments. You'll take your painkillers. You might get some vibration work on it or ultrasound, or get some temporary relief. But until you stop those 2 joints from banging the hell out of each other, you're not going to solve the problem.
Yeah. It's
You
true.
have to understand the why. Why is it doing that?
So, Derek, the main thing is people can touch base with you on
Yeah, and if
healthco.ie.
people have queries, I'd be happy to take them, you know. Yeah. They can connect with me on the Health Pro site. Yeah.
Derek has pivoted his business and that he is taking clients virtually as well. So no matter where you are in the country or internationally or anything, if you're in pain, please, please, please don't say no to pain and learn, because in the great words of another great lady in leadership is Marie Forleo, she says that everything is figure outable. And that is something that I definitely follow and that you definitely follow as well. So don't take no for an answer.
Never moved it. Itis is definitely figure outable. Can I use that?
So, Derek, I think we'll say goodbye to everyone. And
thank you very much, everybody.
For tuning in.
Thanks for listening in.
And if we can get the conversation about feet happening, that would be awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.